George Peele, baptized July 25, 1556, buried November 9, 1596, was an English translator, poet, and dramatist, who is most noted for his supposed but not universally accepted collaboration with William Shakespeare on the play Titus Andronicus. Life. Peele was christened on July 25, 1556 at St. James Garlick Hythe in the City of London. His father, who appears to have belonged to a Devonshire family, was clerk of Christ's Hospital, a school which was then situated in central London, and wrote 2 treatises on bookkeeping. Peele was educated at Christ's Hospital, and entered Broadgates Hall, Oxford, in 1571. In 1574 he removed to Christ Church, taking his BA degree in 1577, and proceeding MA in 1579. In that year, the governors of Christ's Hospital requested their clerk to discharge his house of his son, George Peele. He went up to London about 1580, but in 1583 when Albertus Albert Loski, a Polish nobleman, was entertained at Christ Church, Peele was entrusted with the arrangement of 2 Latin plays by William Gager FL 1580–1619 presented on the occasion. He was also complimented by Gager for an English verse translation of one of the Iphigenias of Euripides. In 1585 he was employed to write the device of the pageant borne before Woolston-Dixie, and in 1591 he devised the pageant in honour of another Lord Mayor, Sir William Webb. This was the De Census Austriae printed in the Harleian Miscellany, 1808, in which Queen Elizabeth is honoured as Austria. Peele had married as early as 1583 a woman who brought him some property, which he speedily dissipated. Robert Greene, at the end of his pamphlet Greene's Groat's Worth of Wit, exhorts Peele to repentance, saying that he has, like himself, been driven to extreme shifts for a living. Anecdotes of his reckless life were emphasized by the use of his name in connection with the apocryphal Merry Conceited Jests of George Peele printed in 1607. Many of the stories had circulated before in other jest books, unattached to Peele's name, but there are personal touches that may be biographical. The book provided source material for the play The Puritan, one of the works of the Shakespeare Apocrypha. Death. Peele died of the pox, according to Francis Maris, and was buried on November 9, 1596 in St. James's Church, Clerkenwell. One of the 8 boarding houses at the modern Horsham campus of Christ's Hospital is now named Peele after George Peele, and as a commemoration to the work of the Peele family with the ancient foundation of the Christ's Hospital School. Plays. His pastoral comedy The Arraignment of Paris was presented by the children of the Chapel Royal before Queen Elizabeth perhaps as early as 1581, and was printed anonymously in 1584. In the play, Paris is asked by Jupiter to decide which goddesses, Juno, Pallas or Venus, should be awarded the golden apple. He awards this to Venus, who carries Paris away, leaving his wife Oenone disconsolate. Juno and Pallas arraign Paris before the gods of partiality and his judgment. The case is then referred to Diana, with whom the final decision rests. She gives the apple to none of the competitors but to a nymph called Eliza, Arzabeta Fair, a reference to Queen Elizabeth I. His play Famous Chronicle of King Edward I was printed in 1593. This chronicle history is an advance on the old chronicle plays, and marks a step towards the Shakespearean historical drama. Peele may have written or contributed to the bloody tragedy Titus Andronicus, which was published as the work of Shakespeare. This theory is in part due to Peele's predilection for gore, as evidenced in the Battle of Alcazar acted 1588–1589, printed 1594, published anonymously, which is attributed with much probability to him. The Old Wives' Tale printed 1595 was followed by The Love of King David and Fairbeth St. Britain ca. 1588, printed 1599, which is notable as an example of Elizabethan drama drawn entirely from scriptural sources. F. G. Fleet sees in it a political satire, and identifies Elizabeth and Leicester as David and Bathsheba, Mary, Queen of Scots as Absalom. Cercle Amen and Cercle Mids printed 1599 has been attributed to Peele, but on insufficient grounds. Other plays attributed to Peele include Jack Straw ca. 1587, The Wisdom of Dr. Dotty Pole printed 1600, The Maid's Metamorphosis printed 1600, and Wily Beguiled printed 1606, though the scholarly consensus has judged these attributions to be insufficiently supported by evidence. Indeed, individual scholars have repeatedly resorted to Peele in their attempts to grapple with Elizabethan plays of uncertain authorship. Plays that have been assigned to or blamed on Peele include Lickran, The Troublesome Reign of King John, and Parts 1 and 2 of Shakespeare's Henry VI trilogy, in addition to Titus Andronicus. Edward III was attributed to Peele by Tucker Brooke in 1908. While the attribution of the entire play to Peele is no longer accepted, Sir Brian Vickers demonstrated using metrical and other analysis that Peele wrote the first act and the first two scenes in Act II of Titus Andronicus, with Shakespeare responsible for the rest. Minor works. Among his occasional poems are The Honour of the Garter, which has a prologue containing Peele's judgments on his contemporaries, and Polyhymnia 1590, a blank verse description of the ceremonies attending the retirement of the Queen's champion, Sir Henry Lee. This is concluded by the sonnet, A Farewell to Arms, quoted by Thackeray in the 76th chapter of the Newcomes, and which served as the title of Ernest Hemingway's novel of the same name. To the Phoenix Nest in 1593 he contributed the praise of chastity. Reputation. Peele belonged to the group of university scholars who, in Greene's phrase, spent their wits in making plays. Greene went on to say that he was in some things rarer, in nothing inferior, to Christopher Marlowe and Thomas Nash. Citation needed. This praise was not unfounded. The credit given to Greene and Marlowe for the increased dignity of English dramatic diction, and for the new smoothness infused into blank verse, must certainly be shared by Peele. The most familiar parts of Peele's work are, however, the delightful songs in his plays From the Old Wives' Tale and The Arraignment of Paris, and the song A Farewell to Arms, which are irregularly anthologized. A Farewell to Arma. My golden locks time hath to silver turned. O time too swift, O swiftness never ceasing. My youth 'gainst time and age hath ever spurned, but spurned in vain. Youth waneth by increasing. Beauty, strength, youth, are flowers but fading seen. Duty, faith, love, are roots, and evergreen. My helmet now shall make a hive for bees. And lovers' sonnets turn to holy psalms. A man at arma must now serve on his knees, and feed on prayers, that are age his alms. But though from court to cottage I depart, my saint is sure of mine unspotted heart. And when I saddest sits in homely cell, I'll teach my swains this carol for a song. Blessed be the hearts that wish my sovereign well, cursed be the souls that think he her any wrong. Goddess, vouchsafe this aged man his right to be your beadsman now that was your night. Last poem of Polyhymnia, November 17, 1590. Professor Francis Barton Gumer, in a critical essay prefixed to his edition of The Old Wives' Tale, puts in another claim for Peele. In the contrast between the romantic story and the realistic dialogue, he sees the first instance of humor quite foreign to the comic business of earlier comedy. The Old Wives' Tale is a play within a play, slight enough to be perhaps better described as an interlude. Its background of rustic folklore gives it additional interest, and there is much fun poked at Gabriel Harvey and Richard Stanhurst. Perhaps Juan Bango, who parodies Harvey's hexameters, and actually quotes him on one occasion, may be regarded as representing that archenemy of Greene and his friends. Peele's works were edited by Alexander Dice 1828, 1829–1839 and 1861, A. H. Bull in 2 volumes, 1888, and by Charles Tyler Prouty 3 volumes, 1952–1970. An examination of the metrical peculiarities of his work is to be found in Richard Lammerhurst's Georg Peele, Untersuchungen über sein Leben und seine Werke Rostock, 1882. See also Professor F. B. Gumer, in Representative English Comedies 1903, and an edition of The Battle of Alcazar, printed for the Malone Society in 1907.